Here in studio is Zaki, who is the chairman of the executive board for the Meretz party. Also with me, Jeremy Saltan, who is the director of English operations for the Yamina party. Jeremy, I want to start with you and ask, the marriage contract, so to speak, between Netanyahu and Gantz did stipulate, it was written out in text, they both signed it, agreed for a 2-year budget. So if a budget isn't presented, it's not passed, isn't this the fault of Netanyahu? Doesn't the brunt of the blame rest at his feet?
Well, obviously, if we don't end up having a budget, this is going to be Netanyahu's fault. However, Gantz might fall into a Netanyahu trap, and this wouldn't be the first time he does so. Look, Netanyahu, it seems, very much wants to have an election in June after a March failure to pass a budget. Netanyahu has a big problem now. Look, the economy is not in good shape. This budget that he's supposed to go ahead and propose, he has two options. One is a very populistic one, which will put us in even more trouble. Or the second one is to go ahead and have one that we actually need, which is going to mean a lot of decrees that I'm not so sure you want to go ahead and do in an election year. And since Netanyahu has never wanted to give Gantz the rotation, he's going ahead and saying, well, let's take this as long as possible. Gantz has this dilemma. What does he do? If he goes in and crashes the government next month, what that means is he has zero chance of being prime minister. If he goes in and goes with Netanyahu and says, fine, let's go to March, then there is this, let's say, 1% chance that he becomes prime minister.
Or do you agree that this may be yet another instance of Netanyahu's political maneuvering? Is Gantz falling into a Netanyahu trap?
Well, he fell to the trap the minute he joined the government. He did the responsible thing, joined in the midst of a pandemic, took responsibility, and joined with someone who's a political crook. I'm sorry to say that about our prime minister, but that's what he is. And, he's using the only place in the agreement where in any other circumstances, Gantz would become the prime minister under rotation. There was something they didn't cover. The case of not passing a national budget. Now, it's crazy not to pass a national budget. They talk about 2 years budget. We're talking about 2020, which is about to end, in 2021. We're in the midst of really the most dreadful economical crisis Israel has been in decades. And this prime minister, in order to save his own neck, is putting it as a hostage to his will to remain prime minister. The only problem for Netanyahu is Jeremy's party, because he sees that in the polls, he loses a lot of seats to Naftali Bennett.
But all that being said, even if there's no budget, if early elections are called, even a weakened Netanyahu, a diminished Likud party, polls consistently show there will be a right-wing majority bloc. That's the will of the people, even despite everything.
I'm not sure it's the will of the people. I think Bennett very smartly understood, much like Biden in the United States, that what interests the people right now is the pandemic. And he says, don't talk to me about anything but Corona. Very smart. And that's how he gets also votes from folks who voted blue and white last time, even Labor probably. The only problem with Bennett, that he also falls to the Netanyahu trap by saying, I will not cooperate with Yair Lapid. Because if he would not cooperate with Yair Lapid, who's the chair of the opposition now, he doesn't have any option but to align himself with Netanyahu. So that means for Netanyahu, okay, let's go for an election because Bennett went into my trap and he says, I will only cooperate with Netanyahu. That's his only option.
That's not true. Bennett did not say he'll only cooperate with Netanyahu.
He said, I will not cooperate with Lapid.
No. He said that he's not going to go ahead and make these decisions of giving out coalition ministers before he's actually even elected. As I'm sure you know, Bennett has not formally announced yet that he's running for prime minister, despite the fact that, of course, in the favorability and suitability polls, he's already running neck and neck with the current prime minister. Look, we can go into coalition math if you want, but the reason that we're in this situation is because Netanyahu does not want to go ahead and pass a budget. And Gantz has decided that he wants to put pressure on Netanyahu. If we go to an election because of what happens next month, Netanyahu can say, I was going to make Gantz prime minister, but it was Gantz that decided to go ahead and bring down the government. It's not because of me. It's not because of the budget. It's because of Benny Gantz. And that's, again, a brilliant Netanyahu move. That's why I don't think that Gantz is going to fall into that trap. I think this is going to drag out. We'll have another extension into March, but we're not going to have a budget. And what ends up happening
But why would
is
he
the
do
people
that?
of Israel are the, why would he do it? I said,
why would
because
Gantz
of that
do
one,
that?
because of the 1% chance that he'll be prime minister. We know by now that he's not the sharpest tool in the shed when it
That's
comes to politics.
true.
He's an amazing
we're
person.
consensus on that
He's a war hero. He's done great things for the state of Israel. As a politician, he has just been a complete catastrophe.
I agree.
So I expect that he's going to continuously make the wrong decision.
I want to just jump in here and note, we were talking a little bit about who was the opposition chief, Yair Lapid, a former close political partner of Benny Gantz. Yair Lapid making some remarks recently in English, specifically mentioning what happened in the U.S. And the chance of a new dawn on the horizon in the relationship between Israel and America. Here's what Yair Lapid said.
I would like to start by congratulating President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris on their election. I know that they both care deeply about Israel and the Jewish people, about our security, and about our future. I look forward to working with them and with our friends in both parties to rebuild a U.S.-Israeli relationship that goes beyond party lines. Our relationship has always been based not only on critical shared interests, of which we have many, but also on our most deeply shared values.
Jeremy, one thing we heard there that we have not heard specifically from Netanyahu or any Likud minister is the term president-elect. He has congratulated Joe Biden, but for what? Hasn't said that Joe Biden is the president-elect of the United States. Do you accept it? Does Yamina? Are you surprised that Netanyahu hasn't said that phrase? It seems important.
I think that Netanyahu is scared of what Trump might do before January 20th. That's the honest truth. I think it's very clear to the majority of people that Joe Biden won the election. Trump wants to contest that. He thinks he's going to win the Supreme Court. I think it's pretty clear he won't. It's his democratic right to go ahead and do so. So I think Netanyahu's trying to go ahead and just stay clear out of the way. Of course, when you're in the opposition, it's easier to go ahead and say these things. Obviously, Lapid said it. Of course, Bennett was the first member of the center-right bloc to go ahead and to congratulate Joe Biden on his victory, ready Saturday night on Meet the Press. This shouldn't be an issue. Look, the relationship between Israel and the United States is stronger than whoever is the prime minister of Israel, whoever the president is.
Has it been damaged, though, Uri?
I think it has, and I think the crucial point is not only the relationship between Israel and the Democrats, and it's starting with the reckless behavior of Netanyahu during the Obama administration, and specifically his speech, which was towards Israeli elections goals, but really was shameful in American standards, but also with the American jury. We must remember that 77% of American Jews voted for Biden. That's more than even American Jews voted for Hillary.
But you don't think there's a rift? You don't think...
Look, I think that there's going to be a lot that is put in terms of focus of what Netanyahu said and what he didn't say. And again, I'm in the opposition here, okay? There are plenty of things that I want to go ahead and criticize Netanyahu about. I think what he's done in terms of the coronavirus is terrible. It's not been managed well. But I do understand him on this issue where he is afraid. Let's remember.
No, but
let's
before
remember
that,
2, 3, 3, 4 with
alliance
Obama.
with Trump.
Someone
Who's hated
remember
and feared by the Jewish community, and putting on signs and with Trump and all that. We cannot behave like that. We cannot alienate the American jury so much. At the end of the day, it's not the evangelical Christians who are the backbone of our relations with the Americans, but rather the American
I'm not as worried as you are. I was a deputy delegate to the Zionist Congress that we just had less than a month ago. And yes, definitely a majority of the people there were supporting Biden, whether they were American diaspora or European delegates.
I need to jump in here because we're out of time. A really enlightening discussion. Uri, Jeremy, both of you, thank you so much for being with us. Great to have this discussion here on the Zoom and